mati.
This man captured actual footage of what I can only describe as a demon. On April of 2021, a man named Cody was alone in his house when strange things began to happen. Cody noticed the bathroom lights started to flicker and the sink was running. He turns the water off, and as he's leaving the bathroom, he begins to feel uneasy, like if there's something else in the house that does not want him there. As he's moving away from the bathroom, he hears something behind him. The bathroom door had closed on him, and this is where Cody was truly freaked out. So Cody decided he would step outside the house and call his girlfriend to let her know what's been happening. She tells him to stay outside, but he insists on recording the event. When he goes back inside, he finds his kitchen in total disarray. Here's where things truly get horrifying.
Nope.
After 2 hours, Cody finally musters up the courage to go back inside the house.
After inspecting every room, every closet, underneath every bed, Cody could not find anyone. So he thought. After closely inspecting his footage, he found something in his daughter's room that had been watching him.
My heart just dropped. I could feel my face, all the blood in my face ran. I mean, it scared me. It just looked like somebody watching me. I didn't sleep that night.
Is this video proof children can actually see ghosts? A mother sits with her 2 daughters having dinner. When all of a sudden, the older daughter gets scared by something watching them in the other room.
I just turned off the lights, that's all. What was that?
The daughter closest to the room arguably becomes temporarily possessed, laughing frantically.
What are you doing? Oh, what, Nanny? Look at me. What are you scared of? The fish? Oh, the fish died. What? Angel's sleeping already. It's raining, girls. Nanny, are you almost done eating? Look at me. Look at me. Look at me.
When she takes a closer look, whatever's in that room terrifies her.
Look at me. What's the matter?
Can't imagine the horror that's put upon the mother as she desperately tries to reassure her 2 girls. This is how you spot a skinwalker. On January of this year, a creator by the name Donnie Donahue uploaded a video titled Skinwalker Sighting in Abandoned Mine. In the video, Danny hears an unnerving sound coming from the cave.
What the fuck is that?
Creepy enough, the cave is sealed shut, like it's keeping something locked away.
Do we go up there? I don't hear it anymore. Should not be doing this.
As Danny gets closer, what he captures will haunt him forever. Take a look.
No, I don't see anything. Go.
This man went camping and recorded his own abduction. A 30-year-old man named Jacob Edris went camping in Eugene, Oregon on November 14th of 2017. His camera was found around his campsite along with all of his other belongings.
Yo, it's about that time.
sun is setting. It's about 8 o'clock. Should be dark out here in less than an hour. There's someone right outside. That can't be. That gets us. That's someone's messing around with the rocks out there. Jesus. Leave me alone!
To this day, Jacob remains missing. It's unsure what exactly happened to Jacob and his disappearance, but many claim this horrifying footage explains it all. Take a look. A group of teenagers broke into an alleged haunted mansion. This is what happened to them. On 1859, a man by the name Dr. Barton had built a mansion for his family on top of burial grounds. Shortly after his 2 daughters moving in, they would die of unknown causes. Stories claim Dr. Barton resulted in satanic practices in result of grieving for his daughters' deaths. Years later, in 2001, a group of teenagers gave a visit to the abandoned and alleged haunted Barton mansion. This is what happened that night. Take a look. Creepy Unexplained Sounds Part 8. On October 3rd of 2019, a group of friends went grouse hunting at a nearby forest in Ontario, Canada. It was just like any other hunting day for them. Until later that day at around 6:50 p.m. All of a sudden, the group hears what sounds like horrific roars of an unknown creature coming from deep inside the forest. This is the story of the world's most haunted painting, The Anguished Man. This painting was made by a mentally disturbed man using his own blood. Then, moments later, he took his own life. A man by the name Sean Robinson took responsibility of the painting after the previous owner, his grandmother, had passed away. The painting manifests paranormal activity in the area it's present, so Sean keeps it locked away in his attic. In 2011, Sean decided he would share to the world what would happen if the painting is not kept locked away. Take a look.
So I'm going to set up the recording equipment and leave it for approximately 8 hours, and I'll leave the light on.
This is the creepiest real haunted house evidence I have ever seen. A couple by the name Lee and Stacy from the YouTube channel called Really Haunted have been documenting their paranormal experience for well over a year now. So they installed surveillance equipment ever since they got progressively worse in their house. They have so many paranormal videos, but in my opinion this one is really convincing. Since it was captured by an SLS camera, and these cameras capture human-like shapes based on joints and movement. You can see this curious entity wandering around Lee's bedroom. As it approaches Lee, it aggressively knocks down a nightstand. What does this entity want with Lee and Stacy? It's truly terrifying to think. What is haunting this couple's house and why? If you're hearing the voice of an evil spirit, you could try this to get rid of it. On January 27th of 2022, a YouTuber by the name Jama Q would experience the cries of a wandering spirit at 1 a.m. Ever since he moved to this house, he has been tormented by different wandering spirits randomly through the night. Jama was preparing to test out a ritual a viewer of his had suggested. His house was built in front of an ancient burial ground where they would practice a ritual named Kukatashi. Kukatashi was a ritual that the accused were ordered to swear their innocence before the gods. Then they were forced to put their hand inside of this pot of boiling water. It was said that the innocent person would be unharmed, but the guilty would be badly scalded. This is how you spot a skinwalker. On May 6th of 2020, a YouTube channel by the name Gemini Home Entertainment uploaded a survival video. And it was pretty basic, until it started to demonstrate the dangers of nature, calling one specifically an auditory hallucination. You can see someone camping, when all of a sudden they begin recording what seems like a man calling out for help. But if you take a closer look, there's definitely something off about this guy. To this, the video says, don't approach it. If you hear them, they have already heard you. Creepy Unexplained Sounds Part 7. The Missing Files of the Psychophony of Hell. During the late 1900s, a paranormal investigator by the name German D. Argumosa dedicated most of his life to writing and documenting the paranormal. But it wasn't until 1985 that German would capture an audio so disturbing he decided not to release it to the public. The recordings took place in a library in Madrid after the owners claimed experiencing illness and an ominous presence. During the investigation, they recorded this at 3 a.m. in complete silence, and they called it the Psychophony of Hell. Have a listen. This is the story of Elizabeth Fritzl, the girl who disappeared at 18 years old and returned 24 years later. On August 28, 1984, Joseph Fritzl modified his basement where he would hold captive his own daughter Elizabeth. Her mother Rosemary immediately filed a missing persons report and had no idea what was going on. Joseph would force Elizabeth to write a letter in order to clear suspicions of her whereabouts, saying she joined a cult and is staying with a friend anonymously. The missing person case would eventually drop, and for the next 24 years, Elizabeth would be sexually abused by her father and forgotten by everyone. Elizabeth would have 7 kids. One was a miscarriage and the other died 3 days after birth. Joseph would convince authorities he adopted 3 of Elizabeth's abandoned kids, and the other 2 would grow up inside the cellar with Elizabeth. One day, Elizabeth convinces Joseph to take one of her sick kids to the hospital, and somehow convinces him to take her with him after 24 years of confinement. When they arrived at the hospital, the police would take Elizabeth and question her, and she would immediately confess everything. In 2009, Joseph was sent to life in prison. Got a ghost haunting your house? Try this to get rid of it. In 2020, a Japanese man named Jama Q was looking to rent a house when he came across this super cheap deal, but it had a catch. The original owner had passed away in the toilet, where his body was discovered multiple days later. After only a few days of moving in, Jama began experiencing crazy paranormal activity. Jama saw there were strange steps nearby his house, and after some research he discovered that before the properties were built back in 1970, it was a burial ground for ancient tribes. After being denied help from the local church, he decided to take action using boiling holy water. This is what Jesus looked like according to science. In 2015, a forensic anthropologist named Robert Neves analyzed 3 skulls in an archaeological site in Israel. And he used computerized thermography to reconstruct a more accurate representation of Jesus. Here is what science says what Jesus looked like. Although the Bible says this, Revelations 1:14-15, Jesus' skin was a darker hue, that his hair was woolly in texture. The hairs of his head, it says, were white as white wool, white as snow. His eyes were like a flame of fire. His feet were burnished bronze, refined as in a furnace. What do you guys think? Science? Bible? This is what angels look like according to the Bible. Part 2. The Cherubim. The cherubims are first mentioned to be the ones to protect the Garden of Eden after the fall of man. This is what we think they look like, versus what they actually look like. This is what angels look like according to the Bible. Before an angel would appear to you, his first words were always, "Be not afraid." And this is because of their appearance. Many characters in the Bible were always terrified and feared when approached by one. This is an ophonym, what we think they look like, versus what they actually look like. This pastor died for baptizing his followers. Here's what happened. On June of 2018, a pastor by the name Dosho Eshet performed a mass baptism for over 80 of his followers. He had done this in a local lake called Lake Abaya, located in Africa. He baptized the first person and all went well. When the second person approached Pastor Dosho, something horrific would occur. All of a sudden, this massive crocodile leaped out of the water and attacked Dosho. Local fishermen scrambled to save Dosho, using fish nets and attempting to scare off the crocodile. After a while of the crocodile fighting over the pastor's body with the fishermen, it finally gave up. But the damage was too severe and Dosho would pass away from multiple bite wounds. This is why you shouldn't mess with cursed places. Early this year, a TikToker by the user Jay Barari experienced multiple cases of paranormal events. They had recently moved into a farmhouse that was built back in 1742 with an unknown dark past. Due to high amounts of unexplained events, they installed security cameras around the property. This is one of many terrifying recordings the Barari family would experience. Have a look. On May 9th of 2015, a gardener by the name of Stephen Orr witnessed a terrifying scream. Over here, looks like it's holding some water. Huh? I think it's time to go. But Stephen had received so many comments to return and explore the source of the sound, so he did. He found an old furnace in a self-made shelter, so whatever made that noise will forever remain a mystery in that forest. Hey, excuse me sir, weird question, is there a Alexa in Japan? Cause I can't find one. No, but there's this. This thing is called Telenoid, and on August of 2010, it was officially released by a Japanese roboticist named Hiroshi Shiguro.
Well, that's great.
Hello? How are you? Can I touch your face?
It's supposed to be an AI for business meetings or to call elderly people. Ooh, yikes, that's kind of creepy. Anyways, how much is it? Well, it's $7,900.99. Creepy Unexplained Sounds, Part 6. On May 9th of 2015, a gardener by the name of Stephen Orr witnessed a terrifying scream.
Over here, looks like it's holding some water. Huh? I think it's time to go.
Scariest urban legends, the Goat Man. Originated in 1970, the Goat Man is a goat-human hybrid that can be found deep inside the Maryland woods. There was a dismembered woman whose remains were found in the Maryland's mountain park. Many people believe that this is the doings of the Goat Man. Some people religiously paint and draw him around the streets, warning people that the Goat Man have been near those areas. There's a bridge named the Goat Man's Bridge, and many people believe that by crossing this bridge, you will be visited by this creature. This parrot witnessed its owner being killed, and now it won't stop repeating his final words. In May of 2015, a couple by the name of Martin and Glenn had a heated argument at their home in Sand Lake, Michigan. During the argument, Glenn ended up killing Martin by shooting him 5 times. She wrote 3 goodbye letters and shot herself in the head, but paramedics managed to save her. When she woke up in the hospital, she said she didn't remember anything and denied killing Martin. But during the police investigation, they found out that the parrot repeated the whole argument, so Glenn was sentenced to life in prison for manslaughter. Here's the video. This is why abandoned houses should stay abandoned. In April of 2011, 2 guys named Chris and George would explore an abandoned house in hopes of capturing the paranormal. When they get there, they attempt to make contact with spirits, and what they capture is absolutely terrifying. Take a look.
What is your name? Hello? Can you do anything besides play the piano?
Let's go, seriously, right now.
This is why camping can be horrifying. In 2021, a woman was camping with her husband and family in a small remote lake in New Mexico. There was about 10 people in their group and another group of 6 people on the next campsite. It was nighttime and both groups were doing typical activities, making s'mores, having a few drinks, and telling stories. When suddenly they all heard what sounded like a little girl yelling out for help. Neither group had children with them, but they were all positive they heard a little girl, so they decided to search the area they heard the noise come from together. There was a field behind their campsite, and they all saw a very tall, pure white figure standing maybe 100 feet away from them in the field, making the noises. They made their way closer to investigate, but whatever it was they saw started backing off as they got closer and disappeared into the trees. All night they continued to hear the little girl calling out for help as they tried to sleep. This man died and returned after 10 years. Here's what happened. In 2021, in a mental health facility, one of the residents was an elective mute, which means he couldn't talk. But there were no medical reasons as to why. He had spoken earlier in his life and in fact seemed quite normal, with the exception of being close to 7 feet tall. He had been raised in the Deep South and joined the military when he was 19, but one night he vanished. He was declared AWOL and eventually he was declared missing and dead. 10 years later, a 7-foot tall man walked into a VA emergency room in the Midwest. He said to the receptionist, "My name is Marion Duchesne, and I've been dead for 10 years. Those were the last words he ever spoke. He was covered with dust and he was wearing the same clothes he was reported wearing that night he vanished. These 2 girls accidentally invited a demon into their doll. During 1970, a girl named Deirdre was gifted a Raggedy Ann doll for her 25th birthday by her mother Larry. After a few nights had passed, the doll began to move to different rooms on its own. Notes began manifesting randomly in the apartment, saying things like "help us" or "help Cal," so they would call a psychic meeting. The clairvoyant channeled the spirit of a 7-year-old girl who died in this land before the house had even been built. Her name was Annabelle Higgins, and she had been wandering around the property in loneliness from her young death. Touched by her story, Lara and Deidre would accept the doll as a living human being, but Lara's fiance Cal thought no good will ever come from this. Annabelle felt insulted by Cal. Then one night when Cal was asleep, he was attacked by something that had 7 sharp claws. Terrified by this event, they contacted 2 paranormal investigators, Ed and Lorraine Warren. Turns out there was no Annabelle, it had been a demon who tricked them in order to grant it permission to harm them. Knowing the dangers of this malicious doll, the Warrens took the doll and contained it in a secure place. This statue contains the mummified remains of a Buddhist master. He passed away around the year 1100, but researchers are unsure if he actually mummified himself. If he did, he would do this through a process of self-mummification, and this process is absolutely horrific. The first 1,000 days, the monk ceases to eat all foods except nuts and berries, followed by extensive exercises to rid their bodies of all fat. The next 1,000 days, their diet is restricted to only bark and roots. They'll also consume a highly poisonous tea that's made from the sap of a certain type of tree, which causes vomiting and rapid loss of body fluid. It also active as preservative and to kill off all maggots and bacteria that cause the body to decay after death. After all this torture, the monk will lock himself in a stone tomb barely larger than his body. It's there where he would go through a state of meditation in the lotus position, a position where he would stay until death. They had a small air tube that provided oxygen to the tomb. Each day he would ring a bell to let anyone know outside that he was still alive. When the bell stopped ringing, they would remove the air tube for the final 1,000-day period of the ritual. What if your favorite childhood puppet show was this instead of something like Sesame Street or The Muppets? Well, in Czechoslovakia, this was a very popular character in a kids' TV show called Slineko. Its name is Razafan, which was their version of Sesame Street, but kind of designed to give kids nightmares. When the show ended in 1989, the puppet was disposed of, never to be seen again. That was until a YouTuber found him and unfortunately would bring him back to life. These are the things that should only happen in nightmares. In 2009, a man by the name of John Jones went to explore the Nutty Putty Cave in Utah with his family. John was a spelunker and had been exploring caves since he was a kid, but this exploration changed everything. John had squeezed through the area, but he arrived at the birth canal, which is the smallest part of the cave. Since the cave was so narrow, he couldn't really turn around, so he was left with no options but to push forward. Unfortunately for John, he had reached an even smaller area, and on top of this, he was stuck upside down. After many attempts to extract John from this cave, nothing would work. The cave was filled with concrete to avoid its dangers, and to this day, John's body remains sealed inside. This is why you always trust your gut. On March of 2019, a man named Franco went exploring an abandoned town during the night. He would find strange objects that resembled rituals in random areas of the town. Shortly after, he started to hear voices, as if there were people still living in those houses. It was getting dark, and he started to have a strange feeling that something was watching him. Unable to use a flashlight to avoid being spotted, he would see a man standing on the other side of the road. Franco would call a friend to come pick him up by a nearby bridge, as he had planned this in case of an emergency. As they were leaving, he would come face to face with his stalker.
Frank.
Why is 3 a.m. considered the witching hour, or the time of night where spooky stuff happens? The origin of this belief stretches back as far as 1535, where Catholic churches in Europe prohibited any activities at 3 to 4 a.m. due to high amounts of witchcraft. Also, it is known that in the Western Christian tradition, these hours are related to higher amounts of paranormal activity. So, it is referred to as the Devil's Hour, due to it being a mocking of the hour where Jesus died, which was believed to be at 3 p.m. Now you know if someone asked you. China has been acting extremely sus recently, kinda like they're about to have a freaking zombie apocalypse. Anyways, here's 3 crazy facts you should know. The first one is super disturbing, so warning. They're giving all pets COVID tests. If they turn out positive, they'll take them away from you. But it's not temporarily, it's forever. And, super disturbing, they won't fix them, they'll sacrifice them. I'll try censoring to the best of my ability, but keep in mind this is still very disturbing. They're locking down all residents in their homes by placing a blue or green fence around the area and heavily guarding the place. Also, they're not allowed to leave until sometimes 3 weeks. Third fact, if your kid or baby tests positive for COVID, they'll take them away from you, no questions asked.